So Europe has announced some new data protection legislation, which kicks in May 2018. And this affects everyone involved in e-commerce, including dropshippers who are selling to Europe or based in Europe. And in this case, more specifically, the UK. So in this video, I'm going to talk you through what the new data protection legislation is, how it affects you as a dropshipper, and what you need to do to make sure you're not breaking the law come May 2018. So this new legislation, called the General Data Protection Regulation, covers consumers' data protection, their privacy. It kicks in after May 2018, and it covers any companies that are trading with consumers based in Europe. So it doesn't matter where the business is based, if you're based in Europe, America, Canada, wherever. If you're dealing with customers based within Europe, you need to make sure your store complies with the new General Data Protection Regulations. Luckily, this new regulation is a bit simpler for smaller companies, such as dropshippers, smaller companies with less than 250 employees. It's simpler than with bigger companies. So it's much easier to follow if you're a dropshipper. But you still need to be switched on and make sure that you're obeying the law when this kicks in May 2018. So I'm going to talk now through what the main changes are in the law and what you need to be aware of when you're running your dropshipping store after May 2018. So from what I can tell, there's 4 main things you need to be aware of when you're running your dropshipping store next year that you need to make sure you're within the parameters. And those 4 areas that you need to be considerate of can fall within the following 4 categories: consents, vital customer information, clarity, and sneakiness. So let's look at consent. This basically means when you are collecting customers' information, such as their email address for a newsletter, you need to make sure that that customer is actively consenting to giving you that information. And this seems like, well, that's obviously what happens anyway, but there are some tricks that marketers use that capture customers' information where the customer isn't completely aware of how that information is going to be used or that their information is even going to be stored. So take, for instance, if a customer is filling in their invoice, their order form, and they have to put their email address in, to be sent their receipt from their purchase and the useful information around their order. A lot of the times, marketers will put a tick box under their email address that says, I consent to receive store 123's newsletter from now on. And what the new data protection regulation says after 2018 is that tick box cannot automatically be ticked. The customer has to actively tick that box to consent for you to store their email address and to send them information such as a newsletter in the future. So consent is something that needs to be really taken into account. And the next one is vital customer information. After 2018, the General Data Protection Regulation says that you need to be collecting only the customer's most vital information, only the information you need for your business to run. If you're collecting other things such as, their hobbies, what they like to do on a Sunday, things that you don't necessarily need, but you're collecting because you can better maybe market them or target them in advertising, that's illegal. You only need to be collecting vital information that is necessary for your e-commerce business to run. So phone number, you might need to call them if you've had an order go wrong. Email address, obviously, to send them confirmation of their order. Address, to send their order to them. These are the vital information you need to be collecting for that customer. But any unnecessary information that you're collecting before 2018, after that date in May, you need to switch those off and only be collecting the most vital pieces of information around your customer. And the next one's clarity. Things like your privacy policy, things around how you're going to use your customers' data. These need to be really visible links on your store from May 2018 onwards. The customer needs to be able to know exactly why you're collecting their data and how you're going to use it. So make sure your store has clarity on it from next year onwards. And finally, and the one that really has the most impact and is most directed at small businesses, is don't be sneaky. Get rid of the sneakiness. Run a professional store. Don't use customers' data in underhand, shady ways. Just use the data in the way that you need to run your store effectively. Don't follow any bad marketing practices, and just have a professional store that's not sneaky and doesn't trap the customer into having their data used in a way that they didn't originally think their data was going to be used. Just run like a large professional store. And really, even though this is going to be legislation, that's the best way to run your store anyway. You want to be building a brand with a good reputation so that you have long-term customers and a strong reputation to build on in the future. So that's the general data protection regulation condensed into a nutshell from all the research I've done. If you're a UK dropshipper or any dropshipper that sells to the UK or any other country within Europe, you need to make sure that your store is compliant with these regulation changes from May 2018 onwards. And if you're on Shopify, there's a link below to a manual, an article that Shopify have put together around the GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation, on how their store is going to be compliant and how this affects Shopify stores from next year moving onwards. But don't worry really, if you're with Shopify, Shopify is a large multinational company. It knows about all these different laws in different countries. And a direct quote from Shopify basically says that they expect all of their stores to be GDPR, General Data Protection Regulation, compliant from May 2018 onwards. So if you're on a Shopify store, basically it should be business as usual. But if you use other platforms to maybe collect and send your emails or to do advertising, make sure that how you use customers' data on those other platforms and how you're collecting it is compliant with the GDPR regulation from next year moving onwards. So thanks for watching everyone. I hope that helped. Make sure to subscribe to this channel, Starting Up, where we talk about how to sell online by building a brand, for more information like this. And I will speak to you very soon. There's videos 3 times a week, and it's basically more information like this: how to sell online, how to build a brand, and any legislation, platform, or general changes that you need to be aware of. So thanks for watching everyone. Bye.